Welcome to the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast, where it's all about using the power of your mind to create hope, health, and miracles on your fertility journey. And now your host, a dash of science and a heap of spirit, Dr. Maria Rothenberger.
Hey, welcome to the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast. This is Dr. Maria Rothenberger, your host for the podcast. And this is episode 141. We are talking about simple dream work stuff. Simple interpretations, because it can get kind of complicated in the dream world, right? But being my Taurus self, I am very practical. I like to make things really useful. So you'll be learning some simple things in terms of how to interpret your dream. Yay for simple and easy. If you've listened to my podcast over the last few weeks, you'll remember that my theme word for 2022 is, in fact, simplicity, making life much more simple. And that has been absolutely necessary of late because so much shit has been going down, lots of chaos, lots of crazy stuff. And so I'm so glad that I have this baseline simplicity in my life set up because there's so much stuff. I think I talked about it in the last episode or the episode before, just when things just go wrong, just everything's going wrong. Not right now, though. I feel like there's a planetary shift or something. Things are a little bit better. However, I do feel that February is sort of a detox month. If you are on my newsletter, then you know that I send out an oracle every month. If you're not on my newsletter and you want an oracle every month, this is your theme for the month that I obviously release the oracle in. It'll just come in your email, and I choose 3 oracle cards or tarot cards, and you tune into whichever one feels best to you, and then I give you a reading based on that particular card. And that's free every month. Just go up to my website, drmariarothenberger.com, and there's a little thing there just to sign up for my newsletter, and you'll automatically get the oracles every month, in addition to the newsletter. It's great fun. I love it. It's a great time. It's actually one of the things that was the most popular for my membership program that I had last year, but I closed that down in an effort to simplify life. And so I decided just to keep it because it's really fun. It's useful for me. It's useful for a lot of people, and it's a good time. Plus there are like crazy bloopers at the end because I just don't get it right all the time, man. Don't get it right. Living life fully. All right. So that's the one thing that I'm releasing this month. Every month is the oracle. You can sign up for that on my website, drmariarothenberger.com. It's just the newsletter. There's just a little spot there to enter your name and email for my newsletter. Oh, what else? Oh, if you enjoy the content of this podcast, please do subscribe. If you're on YouTube or actually any other platform, you can subscribe. And if you feel so inclined, please leave a rating with or without words. I would love a written rating as well, but the stars are fine too. And that just helps pay it forward. Other people can find this podcast and its content just as useful, hopefully, as you do. And enlightening and fun and helpful and supportive and comforting and all that. Those are the words that folks use when they email me their thank yous, which I so appreciate. You are more than welcome to do that as well. info@drmariarothenberger.com. I do intend to get to all emails. It might take me a while. It might take me up to a week, maybe a little longer because I get a few emails, but I do intend to personally respond to all of your feedback. So thank you for that. Appreciate you. Okay, here's what we're talking about today. Dreams. Yay. Now, if you've listened to this podcast, or if you haven't, then now this is new information for you, but I tend to run right in the middle of left brain, right brain stuff. So I like science-y, evidence-based practices. I like that kind of stuff. I like evidence. I like looking at research, pretty nerdy. And then the other side of me is like this esoteric, like quantum physics stuff, which is actually science. This is where I feel like spirit and science are meeting each other very well, beautifully in the quantum physics world. But I like these things that are not necessarily provable, like, is there life after death and things. Now, we're getting closer to that, and there's so much anecdotal evidence out there and even quantitative types of research on this stuff. But it's not traditional sciencey yet. So I'm trying to pull it over, just like many, many other people, pull it over to the sciencey world. Honestly, science is such an infant compared to what has been out there. The current day science used to be very different. Yeah, I could go on and on and on about that. That's my nerdy self, liking to talk about stuff that other people are like, what the fuck are you even talking about, Maria? What? So I'll just shut up now, but I tend to bridge those two worlds. And so that's why this podcast is very much mental health, like evidence-based things, and spirit work, spirit baby work, tarot, oracle, crystals. That's why. Energy medicine, because I love to bridge this gap, like to bring them together. I believe they are items on the same spectrum rather than two separate things. So Dreamwork, though, is kind of on the bridge, right? So there's a lot of work in the science world, particularly in the psychoanalytic world, in the psychology world around dream work and symbols and things like this. But it's still not that evidentiary, right? It's still not that, solid and, evidence-based and predictable and all that. So because there are so many ways that people look at dreams, and again, if you happen to be an expert in dreams, I would love to interview you on this podcast, because I am not an expert. So I'd love to invite experts on. So please do email me at info@drmariarothenberger.com. I'd love to talk with you on this podcast. But there is so much information out there and so many different ways of looking at dreams. I'm just going to help you look at things in a very simple way. I do have my mental health background. I do, have dream inquiry and all these things. So I know some. I don't consider myself an expert in the same way that I don't consider myself an expert in psychopathology or, certain kinds of mental health conditions. So what I will tell you is this is a very simple system of sorts. And it's my own way of helping folks move through their dream work, their dream interpretation. And the reason why this podcast episode is coming up is because I got an email from somebody like you who asked about their dreams and how to interpret a dream that came through to them. And I thought, dang, that's a really good podcast episode that I've never done before. So this is why I really welcome your emails. Please, whatever you'd like to hear about or what you're curious about, please do send those to me. I love using your ideas. So this is what I said, or this is how I work in general, how I work with dreams. Now, we all know that there are dream workbooks out there, dream interpretation things out there. For example, teeth falling out. If you've had a dream about teeth falling out, you may, have looked up something in one of those dream books about why your teeth, what it means about your teeth falling out. What does that mean in my dream? I don't get it. So this is how I ask you to look at dreams. Now, a lot of people will think about dreams being literal. I'm going to tell you that is absolutely possible, and yet it's one of, I think, the rarest things about dreams. So I wouldn't go there directly first. What I would do first is not look at one of those books and really touch base with yourself. Now, this is this is why meditation is really useful, because you're really in touch with yourself. You're not like in it, you're observing, and it feels a little bit easier and neutral. You can tap into intuition a little bit better that way. Intuition is very neutral. It's not emotionally charged at all. So those are side notes. So the first thing that I would do, and this is like a research thing, it's usually the simplest thing that explains first. We go to the simplest explanation first, and then we can get more complicated. That is a sciencey thing. So the first thing that I would go to is yourself. And what I mean by yourself is ask yourself what emotion you were feeling when your teeth were falling out, or when you had that particular dream. I will use a couple of my own examples. I have recurring dreams all the time. Oh gosh, I have 3 that I can tell you about. 3 recurring dreams that happen all the time. One is that people walk in on me in the bathroom. Like completely just walk in. I'm doing my business. I'm on the toilet doing my business, and people walk in. The last time that I had this dream was like 2 weeks ago, and I was in this big bathroom. It was like a main bathroom in the house, and there I am just sitting there, and there's 2 doors in this bathroom, and people start walking through the bathroom to get to the other room. And a couple of them are like, "Oh, hi, I just didn't even see you there. Oh, sorry." And they just keep walking through, and more people are just walking through while I'm sitting there doing my business on the toilet. Okay. So now when I touch base with how I'm feeling with that, okay, because people have different emotions about that. I was mortified. I was embarrassed. I was vulnerable. I was seen. Okay. And people were coming into my freaking space. Okay. So I didn't like it. Somebody else might feel like, oh, whatever. I'm totally comfortable. I love when people come into my space. I love it when people don't really care, like they see me pooping or whatever, like whatever. There's a commercial out now that's like, it's 2022. I think people know that women poop. You may have seen that commercial. It's hilarious. Anyway, side note, I do get a little side notey sometimes. Some people might actually like that. They might feel empowered by it, or they might love to invite people into their space when they are that vulnerable, when they're doing something that's seemingly vulnerable. So that same dream can be interpreted various ways by various people. So I would interpret it as, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. I'm doing a vulnerable thing right now, and people are in my space. I don't like that. So when I interpret my dream, then I'm like, okay, that was the emotion that I was having. What is happening in my waking life that matches that? Where do I need to set stronger boundaries? Where do I need to ask people to leave? Where do I need to be clear about what my boundaries and limits are? When am I allowing people in when it's not comfortable for me? There's more to that too, right? So like maybe I'm inviting people in even though it's uncomfortable because it's helpful in some way to be seen, to be heard, to be like this podcast, right? It took me forever to start this podcast because I knew I'd be listened to. I knew I'd be heard. I knew that I would be out there. My name would be more out there. And now I'm completely comfortable with that. But back then I was probably having the bathroom people walking in on me dream. But somebody else who has this dream, who feels comfortable and loves this, what's happening in your waking life that matches that? And you want to probably invite more of that in and tune into it and feel comfortable with it. And, however you want to manage that in your waking life. So that's just one example. There is one dream that I had all the fucking time when I was dealing with fertility issues. This dream was, I think I've actually talked about it before on this podcast. I had a dream that over and over and over that I was on vacation with my family, my husband and my sister and my parents, siblings. And it was always at the end of this dream, of the vacation, and we were packing up to leave. But I'm the only one packing, and there's so much shit everywhere. There's like souvenirs and clothes and clean clothes and dirty clothes and shoes, and it's a mess in this hotel room. And I am the only one packing, and I'm thinking, how am I going to fit all of this crap in this suitcase? How am I going to do it? And there's no one to help me. Now, you can probably see where this dream is going. I, in the midst of fertility issues, felt like I was alone. I had so much shit to pack, and I couldn't do it. It was so much. How is it going to fit in this little bitty suitcase? All of this stuff. That is exactly how fertility issues feels, right? I've always said that treatments feel like a full-time job. Like, you have a calendar and you have shit to do and you have appointments to keep, and that's a full-time job. And then not to mention, you spend life on Dr. Google, which I encourage you not to do. Set a limit, please. Be frugal with your Google. That is my main phrase that I will leave with you today, in addition to the dream work. But so you can see how the dream matches what was happening in my waking life. Now I can determine what to do with that. I needed to ask people for freaking help. I needed to invite people in to say, hey, can you take care of the corner of the hotel room, that corner over there, and you over there, can you take care of that corner? I needed to ask for freaking help so that I didn't feel so alone, so that I didn't feel so overwhelmed. Right. So the first thing that you're going to do is tune into yourself. How do I feel about this dream? Okay. If you're not really clear or understanding about how you feel about the dream, the next step is to look at all the characters in your dream as yourself. You can do all of these together, by the way, but the first one, the emotion one, I think is the first step, very first step. If you're not clear, or if you are clear but you want more information, look at all of the characters in your dream. Now, as I just said with that one dream, I had my husband, my sister, and all those people in my dream. I would look at every single one and ask myself, what about them reminds me of me? What about their behavior in this dream reminds me of me? And you can get so much information there. For example, the dream where I was trying to pack and everybody left. I'm looking at my husband and he but by the way, that dream totally came true. I'll tell you that at the end, okay? This is crazy. The literal dream came true. This is why it's rare that dreams are literal, but friggin' A, this was real. It's crazy. But anyway, so I'm looking at my husband and asking myself, what about his behavior in this dream reminds me of me? Now, he is very loving and caring and will absolutely do what I ask, usually, if it's reasonable, he's like, great, no problem, I'll do it. And he left. He just left. Now, what about that behavior in the dream reminds me of me? What it reminds me of, especially during the fertility treatments, infertility crap, was that I abandoned myself. I completely lost myself. I didn't have any fun. I had a physician ask me recently, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, friggin' A, how much time do you have? I have so many hobbies. All of those things were gone. I was a shell of myself. I had completely abandoned myself. I look at my sister in that dream. My sister was in it was like a 2-bedroom hotel room. And she was in another room flipping through TV. She was present. She was there physically, but she was just like flipping through the television. Now, when I look at her, what about that behavior reminds me of me? That reminds me that I was ignoring my needs. I was totally ignoring my needs. I could hear them. I could see them. She could see me like flustered and moving around the hotel, cleaning up and everything. She's just flipping through the channels. And what did that remind me of was me totally ignoring that I was losing my shit. And I just kept keeping on. I just kept doing the things and ignoring my needs. So that's the next step. All right. I'm hoping that makes sense. The first step is to tap into the emotion. What is the emotion that I'm having and how does that relate to my waking life? The next step is to look at the characters in your dream and ask yourself, how does that person's behavior in my dream remind me of me? Okay. And then the third thing is look at symbols. Look at the symbols in your dreams. This is where things get a little, you have to practice a whole lot. So like if I were to see a plant in my dream and it was really prominent, usually symbols are quite prominent. If I were to see a plant, I'm looking at a plant in my office, so I picked that randomly. If I was to look at a plant in my dream, I would need to ask myself what that plant means to me. So the plant that I'm looking at physically in my office looks really tall and lush and green. It's beautiful, but maybe the plant in my dream is dying and withering and drying, and it's in need of nourishment of some kind. So again, you're looking at what kind of emotions this brings out in you, what kind of meaning this brings out in you. When I do spirit baby work, I see symbols all the time. I saw one, a triangle once. Recently, I did a meditation where I was actually meditating on something for myself. I'm writing a novel, and it was hemming and hawing about it, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? And I had a vision with an angel brought me a sword. It was just a single sword, and I thought, oh, there's the suit of swords in the tarot. Let me see what a single sword, the Ace of Swords, means. And so I pull out the card. This is how you kind of you run through things. You go with you go with your intuition. What feels right to interpret this right now? And that's what I did. I opened up one of my tarot decks. I felt which one felt right to me. I opened it up. I found the Ace of Swords card and read. Everything made sense to move forward with writing. And literally it said, maybe you're moving forward on a new adventure, like writing a book. I was like, okay, well, shit, I guess I'm writing a book. So there's that. So you want to look at the symbols in your dream. Let me take that same dream. So for me, the symbols of stuff everywhere, or the thing, the vision, the idea of seeing all this shit everywhere and needing to pack into this little tiny suitcase. Okay, that's a symbol. And I already talked about what that means, right? I talked about the emotion before, but when you physically see, dirty clothes, clean clothes, souvenirs, everything like all spread out everywhere, and you have to fit it in this little tiny suitcase. What's the symbol for that? And the symbol for me was, I'm doing so many freaking things and it's overwhelming. It's too much. I have basically 2 full-time jobs here. I'm ignoring myself. I'm losing myself. I've completely abandoned myself. And that's what those symbols mean. So the inanimate objects you treat them similarly to how you look at the people in your dreams, except you're not asking what this reminds you in terms of yourself. Like what does that person's behavior in my dream remind me of myself? Instead, you're looking at this inanimate object and asking, what meaning does that hold for me? What does that mean to me? What does that plant mean to me? What does that crystal mean to me? What does that jump rope mean to me? That was so random. What does that cell phone mean to me in my dream? What does that tree mean to me? So this is where dream books and things, they might have a general idea, but they don't get down to the heart of what it means for you. That is the most important thing. What does this mean for you? Because it can be completely different than somebody else. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to note about dreams is the literal meaning. I mentioned this recently. I discovered that a former client of mine had passed away, and I was really upset. And I asked for him to come to my dream that night, and he did. And I feel that it was literally his soul coming into my dream so that I just said, can you come to my dream so I can hug you? And that night he did. I was in like a bar, which would be so him, like his favorite space. And I just walked up to him and gave him a big hug, and he gave me a big hug, and it was totally him. And I feel that that was literal. So there's some times that you're just going to know, oh, that's a literal dream, especially if it's a visitor, somebody that you're familiar with and that you know, and they bring about the same feelings that they did for you when they were alive. So again, I think, all dreams considered, I feel like that's the rarest, but it is entirely possible. So if you run through all of these things and you're still like, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't really find any meaning in this, maybe ask yourself, could this be literal? Now, here's the last thing about dreams for this podcast. I'm going to talk to you about that one dream coming true. So it was symbolic. I looked at my emotion in that dream. This is the one with packing all the shit and everybody leaving. I looked at the people in my dream and how they reminded me of me. And now it became fucking literal. Okay, so we went to Vegas. We were in Las Vegas. My parents had this timeshare. So it was like a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom timeshare. And my siblings all came, and my parents were there. My husband obviously was there. We didn't have kids at the time, so this is a long time ago. And so it was just us. Now, at the end of this vacation, we had gathered so much shit. We had bought clothes, we had bought souvenirs, all this stuff. And people had different times and days of flights to go home. So this is when we were living in New Jersey. And my parents were living in California, and I had a sibling up in Washington. He's still there, and a sibling in Oregon. So we all had different flight times home. And Teddy and I, my husband and I, were the one of the last flights. My sister was the other last flight. So my parents had gone home. My brothers had gone home. Now it's just my husband and I and my sister. Okay. I'm running around frantic because you're supposed to, for a timeshare, you're supposed to, keep it relatively clean or have it relatively clean when you leave. So I'm frantically running around cleaning. My husband says, hey, I need to head out the door. I wanted to get this souvenir for our neighbor. I'm like, okay. So he's gone. My sister is in the bedroom flipping through the TV channels. I swear to God this happened. And I'm freaking out. In the hotel room going, is this real? Is this actually happening? This dream is totally real. I can't believe this dream is coming true. What the fuck? This is nuts. Now, I asked for help. I did ask for help. I said, hey, Dee, who happens to be in my book, Transcending Infertility, by the way, do you think you could help me clean up? So of course she helped clean up. I didn't abandon myself and my needs. I paid attention. I still felt overwhelmed by all the shit that I had to pack, but it made it. It was fine. But I can't believe that dream came true. It's still bizarre to me. So dreams can be all of the above, right? So like an emotional reminder, it can remind you, it can ask you to, inquire as to what the people in the dreams remind you of in yourself. It can be asking you to look at the symbology. It can be literal. Okay. But that's the most rare. So please start with the emotion. All right. So I hope I've gone through all of the steps and all of the different avenues enough for you to have an understanding of what you need to do, kind of what the steps are, or the different ways to interpret your dreams in a simple way. It really is simple. And I encourage you to use your strengths in terms of how to document this or how to really process it. So I like to write, I journal, I like to write my dreams. And it's fascinating when you do write your dreams down or you document them in some way, because you'll start to see patterns over time. It's fascinating stuff, and a lot of beautiful self-inquiry is inherent in that. So highly recommend. But hey, if just for the fun of it, do it. Interpret a dream one time and see what happens. All right. I hope this has been useful for you. And always, I hope that these podcasts are useful and helpful for you. We've got a lot of great content on tap for you this whole year in the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast. So continue to stay tuned. We will be moving from sciencey things to spiritual things. But I am doing lots more spiritual fertility stuff this year. So hang tight. And if you want more information, always, of course, head over to drmariarothenberger.com. Get on my newsletter, and you will always have updated information there, what's going on, and even some like extras that others don't get, like discounts and heads up for early bird things, and yeah, a lot of good stuff. So just like always, my friend, may you know how to interpret your dreams well. May you move through this life, moving toward your dreams, feeling the movement toward your dreams in your waking life. And as always, may you be well.